Bylus was exhausted as he finally came to rest in the heights above Sententia's temple. A small shrine had come to exist in a cave at the top left side of the cliff face above Sententia's temple. It was in this cavern that Bylus had landed and was greeted by Lunera and a group of shrine maids. "Bylus," Lunera said as she fluttered up to him, and he began to regain his strength as the dust from the wings of the moths around him filled the air with their healing magic. "Lunera, please send someone for Sheen. I have news and I should tell you both at once." Lunera was concerned now as she turned to one of the younger moths and gave a nod. The moth changed and flitted out of the cavern's entrance to find Sheen. Sheen entered the lunar shrine and yawned sleepily as he greeted Lunera and Bylus, who were sitting around a small table. Lunera was sipping tea, and Bylus sat quietly staring into the flickering wick of the candle that sat in the middle of the table. "What is Zion up to now?" Sheen asked jokingly as he took a seat, trying to lighten the heaviness in the room. "Sheen," Bylus stopped as if the words were hung in his throat. "Well?" Lunera asked, fluttering her wings anxiously. "Zion, Ozioi, and Oliver have all been killed." Lunera dropped the tea she was drinking in wide-eyed horror. If Zion was dead, what would become of the desert and of her people? The desert moths had recovered their numbers, but they were all still so young. And the scorpions, they knew where the temple was. She had to get them out. She had to hide them. "Lunera," Sheen boxed, snapping Lunera back to reality and bringing tears to her eyes. "Sheen, we have to go. We have to hide. The scorpions, they know we are here. Without Zion they will." "Lunera, if anyone wants the desert moths, they go through me. Do what you think is right, but if you are truly concerned, have them come here." Lunera looked at Sheen, still shaking and sporting a faraway look. There was certainty on his face, and Lunera decided to cling to that certainty to avoid drowning in the sea of fears she found herself in. She clenched her dainty hand and pulled herself together as Sheen turned his attention back to Bylus. "What about Theos and Derek? Where are they, and what about Zion's sword? Is it safe?" "The boys are fine. They are with Buse. But Sheen, we could not find Zion's sword, and what's worse, Oliver's neck was marked by spider magic." "Spiders?" Lunera squeaked as she began shaking again. "Arenia." Now it was Sheen who was gripped with fear. Black magic was involved in Zion's death, and his sword was missing. And Buse has the heirs to the throne. While Sheen was thinking, another hawk entered the room, pushing past moths that were trying to bar his entry. "My lord, word from Lady Matera. She's leading a legion to the canyon to confront the Spider Queen and requests that you and Lunera send reinforcements." "Teddy has opted to move on the canyon?" Sheen asked in surprise. "No, my lord. Matera went of her own volition. She sent messengers to you, Buse, and Teddy." Sheen crossed his arms. In his head, he was looking at the desert map. The scorpions and spiders are in conflict. Teddy would not ignore Matera or the chance to prove his bravado true. Buse holds the fortress, the sword, and the boys. "Bylus, how many people know about this?" "Only the wings carrying the news. We were told to hold it close to our chest." "So not everyone knew. Probably for the best." Sheen imagined that most of the desert would react the way Lunera had. "Sheen, we have to reinforce Matera," Bylus said in a panicked tone. "No," Sheen replied coldly. "What?" Bylus squawked angrily. "She is our sister. We cannot ignore her call." "Bylus, I do not know what the desert is going to look like when the sun rises. But I cannot risk Buse having all that power and catching us off guard." "Buse?" Bylus asked, confused. "Bylus, Buse holds all the keys to power, and with you here there is no one in the fortress right now to challenge his authority. If we all go after the spiders, he could do as he pleases. Or worse, if he betrays us, he will have our back, and we will be caught between the two." "Sheen, I may dislike him, but Buse is still of the Aranum," Bylus protested. "Buse is a follower of Agatha, and so is the Spider Queen. And with Zion gone, the only way to avoid the worst case is to retrieve the boys and the sword." Sheen turned to the new hawk. "Not a word," he growled. "Leave. The hawk nodded and took his leave as Sheen returned his attention to Byleth. Go, find Matera and assess the condition of her forces, then meet me back at the fortress. What are you doing, Sheen? Byleth asked, keeping Buse honest. Sheen replied. Sheen left the lunar temple and went into the tunnels beneath the desert sand. The tunnel Sheen was in had been dug by the rabbits to be used as a direct route from Sententia's temple in the north to the cliffside fortress in the south. Sheen would be making a slight detour, however, to find Jack. Sheen gave Jack the news, and Jack sat in his chair with a long look on his face. We have to rescue the boys, he said after a long pause. And the sword? We cannot afford to allow Buse or anyone to wield that kind of power until we are sure where the rest of the desert is going to fall. Jack considered Sheen's words as they continued through the tunnel to the fortress in the south. You really think that the kingdom will fall and that Buse would betray us? I am not sure the kingdom has not already fallen, Jack. And as far as Buse goes, I am not willing to find out. And when you say no one should have the sword, does that mean you as well? Sheen stopped now and gave Jack a long, hard look. Did you trust him, Jack? Sheen asked after a moment of deliberation. What do you mean? Jack asked. You know what I mean, Jack. Zion. Did you follow him because you trusted him, or did you follow him because you were afraid of him? I was never afraid of him, Jack replied. He loved my sister. What kind of fox loves a rabbit? Jack chuckled. Sheen realized what he had never thought to question before. It was why Jack had been so adamant about Oliver all those years ago. I was never afraid of him. Now of you, the buzzard, the badger maybe, but never him. What about you, Sheen? Was it loyalty or cowardice that bound you to him? Cowardice initially. But the more I watched him, the more I realized he was sincere, and Sheen stopped and gave a deep sigh. I don't know. I just hated feeling so helpless, Jack. I was there when we killed his mother. I saw firsthand what she was capable of, and she had me dead to rights. She was staring at me like she was looking into my soul, and I froze. She killed the wolf next to me instead and left me there. I try to remember what I was thinking in that moment. What was it that she saw that made her spare me? Jack, I was always afraid he could see it in my eyes. Part of me hoped he had, and that he had forgiven me. But I was always afraid. From the day I met him, and now I am afraid because he is gone. Sheen fell silent. You know, I think you may be the only hunter in the desert who truly understands what it is to be a lesser. Jack replied as he reached his hand out to Sheen. So no matter what the future holds, I am going to choose to trust you the way I trusted him. Thank you, Jack. Sheen replied with a solemn nod. The two of them continued on to the fortress, reaching it shortly after dawn. Once they exited the tunnel, the two split up, with Sheen looking for the sword and Jack going to find the boys. Jack was not sure what the situation was in the fortress, so he did his best to stay hidden as he navigated the corridors. He was not sure what he was looking for, fearing that the boys might be hidden somewhere, but after slinking through the corridors he came upon a section that was filled with fireflies. Jack took his human form as he entered the room to find a black fox speaking with a dainty orange moth in their human forms, with Derek in his arms. The two fell silent as they spotted Jack, and Derek wiggled his way out of the fox's arms and ran to Jack. Who are you, and what are you doing with the boy? Jack asked, staring down the fox as he wrapped the pup in a hug, and the fireflies swirled around him. I am Neelis of the Fireflies, a fox of the wine, and I have come for Derek. The fox replied. A fox of the wine? You are Ozio's brother then? How does a fox of the forest know of Zion's? Jack stopped short as he looked down at the young fox pup. The fox of wine have eyes and ears everywhere, Neelis replied as a firefly landed on his shoulder. Jack Aranum, he said after leaning toward the firefly, and Jack nodded. Jack, my father has sent me here to retrieve Derek. He intends to take the boy on as the heir to the House of Wine. What about Theos? Where is he? Jack asked as he looked past the tall black fox. Ma, please prepare Derek for the journey while Jack and I talk, Neelis said as he turned to the young moth. Yes, sir. Come on now, Prince Derek, she replied with a nod as she turned to Derek and opened her arms. Derek let Jack go and went to the young moth, who began gathering a few of the boys' things as Jack and Neelis walked out into the corridor and made sure to get out of earshot before Neelis continued. Theo slipped away from her before I arrived. I am not sure where he is now. The fireflies outside have not seen him leave, so I would imagine he has not gone far. As for Derek, surely you know. Jack gave a confused look, and Neelis realized Jack did not know. Ozai had always been good at keeping a secret even when they were little. Derek is not Zion's son. Jack was floored by the revelation. My sister had a pup with a fox in the northern desert, and as such he has no claim to your throne here. But he is an heir to the House of Wine, and father is adamant that he is to return with me to the forest. Why? From what I understood, your father hated Ozai. Why would he make Derek his heir? To repent, I suppose. He regrets his rather rocky relationship with her, and I would think taking on the boy may be his way of easing his guilt. Jack considered the revelation for a moment, and the future in front of him. Does Buse know you are here? He asked after a moment's deliberation. I have not announced my presence. I was hoping to avoid any conflict. I am sure your politics are in turmoil. And forgive me if I sound rather callous, but I have no interest in it. I am here for the boy, and he will be leaving with me. I saw no need to ask any permission, as anyone who could grant it is dead. You are right, Neelis. I do not know what will happen in the days to come, but I would rather know Derek is safe. Get him out of here, and avoid the guards if you can. It is better if no one knows where he is. I will look after Theos. Jack turned to find Theos, and Neelis returned to collect Derek, and slipped out of the fortress and into the forest.